when the engine quit on us. And we had got no choice but to eject because the airfield was too far away. We in the hospital for 2-3 days. But that was the nearest I came to death. It was the first time the Indian Air Force was delivering a laser-guided bomb in anger. The weapon had missed. That's when we saw it explode, and we were actually delighted to see the explosion within us from the cockpit. He showed me that the whole ankle had been shot away with a AK-47. You're hardened enough to stare death in the face and not blink. And if I have to live my life once again, I think I would have joined and done exactly the same.
जय हिंद एवरीवन। आज 26 जुलाई पूरा भारतवर्ष कारगिल दिवस मना रहा है और याद कर रहा है उन वीरों को जिन्होंने तन मन और अपना सब कुछ लगा के देश की रक्षा करी और हमेशा से रक्षा करते आ रहे हैं। कारगिल जैसी मुश्किल परिस्थितियों में भी उन्होंने अपना जौहर, अपना करेज और ये दिखाया दुनिया को कि कैसे डिफेंस सर्विसेज हमेशा देश के लिए तैयार खड़े हैं। हर चीज़ से लेके अपनी करेज से, अपनी स्ट्रेंथ से, हर एक चीज़ से उन्होंने देश की हमेशा रक्षा की है। आज हम बात करेंगे, हमारे साथ हैं हमारे चीफ गेस्ट जिन्होंने आर्म्ड फोर्सेस में सर्व किया है। और एक बात और मैं बता दूं आपको दैट डिफेंस सर्विस इज ऑल अबाउट इंग्लिश, सो दिस पॉडकास्ट इज गोइंग टू बी मोर इन इंग्लिश। तो तैयार रहिए, अगर आपकी इंग्लिश अच्छी नहीं है और आप डिफेंस फोर्सेस में जाना चाहते हैं तो इंग्लिश तो अच्छी करना पड़ेगी। एंड वी वेलकम फ्रॉम द कोर ऑफ आवर हार्ट, फिजिक्स वाला, डिफेंस वाला सर एयर मार्शल रघुनाथ नाम्बियार सर, जो कि AVSM, PVSM, VM एंड बार से सम्मानित किए गए हैं। So please welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me with you.
Okay, sir. So, sir, how is your experience? How did you, the very first time when you got to know about this podcast, what did you think that what is going to be here for you?
I was aware of PhysicsWallah.
Okay.
I am too old to have attended any classes from PhysicsWallah. But I was aware of the concept. I have seen an OTT platform video describing your organization in great detail and the struggles your founder went through to establish this organization, and of the great service you're doing to all our people in making them better educated as well as good people. So I look forward to talking to your students through you and this podcast. And I wish you all great success.
Thank you very much, sir. And we also feel great that you have come here, take time for our students, and you are going to mentor them here online. So it's really a great pleasure, sir. So, sir, what I want to know, the very first question is, I got to know that you have served during the Kargil War as well. So in 1999, despite Lahore Declaration, Pakistan was doing infiltration and they wanted to capture certain points. So what was the larger vision in their mind? What exactly what they planning? What was inimical in their hearts and their minds? What was the larger target? Our audience wants to know that.
Pakistan has always been angry with India right since our independence. The very existence of Pakistan was based on the fact that they were different from us. And therefore, they have always tried to maintain some sort of friction between the two of these nations, which should have actually been very good friends. These things all go back for a long time, right from independence days. And ever since then, and more specifically after 1971, when we dismembered Pakistan and birthed a new country called Bangladesh, Pakistan has always been anti-India in every which way that they could be. They are now trying to get back at us, and probably they looked at it as an opportunity that, where is this popular Hindi saying, "Muh mein Ram aur bagal mein chura," and that's exactly what they did. When the Rao declaration was actually going on, when our Prime Minister Vajpayee was traveling by bus all the way to Lahore. At the same time, there were enemy soldiers who, under the grab of being Mujahideens, had crossed our line of control, climbed up onto mountain tops, and were physically looking down upon us on this vital National Highway 1A, which ran from Srinagar to Ladakh. And they wanted to shell it and dominate it and create an embarrassment for us. So, this is what they were saying, and this is what they were doing. They were totally diametrically opposite.
Okay. Okay, sir. If I see with the view of strategy and tactics, how important was Tiger Hill, tooling, and .4875 in terms of strategy? Why they wanted to capture those specific points?
These specific points, Tiger Hill,
Tooling
point
and
of Tololing, and 5388, they overlook the vital National Highway 1A, which runs from Srinagar through the Zoshila Pass, through Dras to Kargil and beyond to Ladakh. If you had these strategic points in your control, you could sit on top of these hilltops and monitor what was happening on the road and call in artillery fire from across the border in Pakistan occupied Kashmir accurately onto our troops and vehicles which were moving regularly up and down these roads to supply Leh. So, by dominating these hilltops, they had a direct line of vision to what was happening on the road. And this immediately resulted in a lot of fratricide on our side. So, that was the vital requirement for them to climb these hills and sit on top, despite all the difficulties of doing so in the dead of winter.
Okay. Okay, sir. If we go back to 1999, so when you first learn about the Kargil conflict, and how did you evolve yourself? What was your individual actions or strategy there?
There is nothing like an individual strategy. We are part of a larger army. We fought as a squadron, and we operated together in coordination with everybody else to make sure that we achieved success. So there was no individual plan per se. We were based in Gwalior. I was not even in the squadron. I had completed my first inning in the squadron. I had been picked up my rank of wing commander. Okay. And there's only one wing commander in the squadron who commands the squadron in those days. So I was posted out because that slot was not vacant. And that was when Kargil happened. And I was immediately put back into the squadron as a reinforcement. It's a sort of an attachment for a short period of time to get the war over with and to help with my knowledge and in the capability which I had already gained being in the squadron for a long time. So that's how Kargil's brought out, and that is we just followed the rules and the law of the land, and we followed instructions which were coming from the top to reach what we were intending to do.
Any incident or any story that is still stuck in your mind, anything that is either motivational or something, a kind of mishappening, which happened with you or with any of your comrades, which you want to really recollect?
I have very vivid recollection of whatever transpired in this whole period. This war lasted for the Indian Air Force 50 days. On the 30th of May, which was about 4 days after the war commenced, we were transported by helicopter to Dras and to Kargil to show us the target area and to explain to us what the problem was and what the challenges were. We had landed at Dras and we were briefed very thoroughly in detail by a Major General who was commanding the division in the place called Matayan. After he finished his briefing, when we headed back to the helicopter to go back to Srinagar, what we saw was a bunch of 5 or 6 ambulances coming down the road, the National Highway 1A, heading from Leh back to Srinagar, apparently to go to the hospital there. So the medical officer who was in the ambulance came up to our captain of this helicopter which we were flying in and requested him permission to take these patients back to Srinagar. By ambulance, it would have taken them 2 or 3 days to reach the hospital. But by chopper, they would have reached there within just about 35 odd minutes. Our captain willingly agreed. And when we sat back in the helicopter, we had next to me a young boy, maybe about 19 or 20 years old, a soldier, dressed in what I would call inadequate clothing, because of the fact that at night in those locations, it used to be in summer minus 10 to minus 20 degrees centigrade. And on the hilltops, they could be very much colder. All their faces were blasted away because of the wind. And you could see the raw skin on their face, having been exposed to high wind velocity at those altitudes. All of them were injured. The gentleman who was sitting next to me, 19 years old, had probably appeared to be the least injured. He was not on a stretcher. He was sitting next to me. But what I noticed was that he was wearing only one boots and the other leg was sort of, under some sort of a blanket. And hanging next to him on his belt was another shoe, a jungle boot. So I asked him, "What's wrong with you? Why are you going to the hospital?" Because he looked that fit. So that's when he took out this jungle boot of his, which had tied to his belt. And he showed me that the whole ankle had been shot away with a AK-47. And his leg was, he's probably required amputation and probably wouldn't have been able to do his service in the army any longer. So it was very painful to see such a thing. Somebody who has been, scarred for life. And but he was very cheerful. And so I asked him, "What are you doing with this boot?" It was, torn away and there was nothing left of it. I assumed that probably he has to give it back to the army or some requirement like that. That's why he was carrying it. I was wondering why didn't he throw it off in the nearest dustbin and continued. So he told me that he was taking it back home. He was somewhere in Maharashtra and he wanted to show it to his mother.
Oh my God.
Now, this was very touching and I felt so sad that this poor young guy, barely 19 years old, was directly affected by whatever was happening all around us. So I remember this very vividly and it brings me feel a lot of emotion and,
It's really, it is heart rendering, and at the same time, it makes me feel proud as well for the defense forces. And at the same time, I also feel that it is very heart rending. So it is a kind of mixed feelings. So really, hats off to the armed forces, sir. And I got to know that you were the first pilot to employ a laser guided bomb in combat during the Tiger Hill strike. So could you please take us through that historic moment and how did you evolve with the situation?
The Indian Air Force at that stage, we had the Mirages for almost 19 years when we started the operations in Kargil. The aircraft came to us in 1985. And at that point in time, I was almost 40 years old, a wing commander. But I was the most experienced Mirage 2000 pilot in the Air Force. I had about 1900 hours of flying on that aircraft itself. And it was like a musical instrument for me. Everything worked. My fingers, my eyes, and my body knew how to fly that aircraft extremely well. I mean, I was so happy doing that job. When Kargil happened, we required to do a few other things which were essential. Kargil was, to the consideration of the Indian Air Force, conflict and not an actual war. And we had the weapons for fighting that actual war. But for a conflict, the sort of weapons which were supposed to be there were not existent in our inventory. So we had to pull out and do what is colloquially termed as jugaad to get things going. We had to put in a new laser-guided bomb, a new laser-guided pod, and all of them had to be sort of integrated onto the Mirage. And this was done in very quick time. It was an immense team effort. A lot of people were involved. There were Israelis from all the way back from Haifa and Tel Aviv who had flown into Bangalore and who had come to Gwalior to make this happen. The weapons were with us. They required a little bit of mechanical modification, which was done very quickly. And all this happened very rapidly. The air war started on the 26th of May. By the 24th or 23rd of June, we had a laser delivery capability. And sure enough, on the 22nd evening, we were tasked to attack Tiger Hill. Given my experience, it was but natural that I would be a part of this historic mission. This was the first time the Indian Air Force was delivering a laser-guided bomb in anger. And I was privileged. With me in my rear seat was Squadron Leader Manish Yadav, who was a squadron pilot. Okay. And we took off from Adhampur early in the morning at 6:30 on the 24th, along with another aircraft equipped with a laser-guided bomb. We also had a third aircraft, which was being flown by the commanding officer, along with the chief of air staff, who was coming along to watch what was happening, because this was a very historic moment and the first time that a laser-guided bomb was being delivered. So it was like everybody was, their eyes were on, and you were under the sort of internal pressure to perform, because everybody was watching. And this is the first time something was being done. And since it was being done not in the sort of fashion which was done normally, that is, everything done methodically and in sequence and perfectly, here there was a lot of, how I would put it, variables involved, all of which kept you under a little bit of stress with whether you would perform correctly, whether the aircraft would perform correctly, whether the weapon would perform correctly. So all these variables were like, gnawing at your stomach. You're not very certain, but you were confident that you could do it. And that's how we set course. The distance between where we were operating from, we were flying from a base called Adhampur, which is close to Jalandhar in Punjab. And from there to Kargil was about 500 kilometers as the crow flies. By road, it would have taken even longer distance because of the various mountains and the terrain involved. But by air, it was about 500 kilometers, and given our speed on the Mirage, it was about half an hour flying time. We used to fly 1,000 kilometers per hour. So our challenge was first to acquire the target, which was supposed to be a set of 9 enemy tents located at the peak of Tiger Hill top. Tiger Hill by itself is a very grand looking hill. But from the hill top, when you're looking at it from the valley below it, from Dras, it's very majestic. It stands out as a unique hill as compared to all the other hill features around. It stands out. But from 30,000 feet where we were operating in the Mirage, all the hills looked the same. They were like black bottoms and white top. Oh. And they all looked exactly the same. The unique features of Tiger Hill, which was its steep conical shape, got merged into the huge landscape of the Himalayas. About the only mountain which stood out in contrast to everything else was Mount K2, Godwin Austen, which was the second highest mountain in the world, which was also nearby, not very close, but close enough to us to see it very clearly. They stood at 28,000 feet, where Tiger Hill was about 16,500 feet. So, given our equipment on board the aircraft, we quickly picked up the target by about 50 kilometers from it, which, to put in perspective, is about just 3 minutes of flying time. We were doing 1,000 kilometers per hour. So 50 kilometers is done in 3 minutes, less than 3 minutes actually. And that is the sort of distance and we require to do our job. That is, you have to pick up the target, you have to designate it with laser, you have to drop the bomb, and then after you drop the bomb, you have to guide the bomb to the target. All this had to be done at super high speed. We had 2 people on board. I was in the front seat. It was my responsibility to navigate the aircraft to the target and drop the bomb, because the switches for that were only available in the front seat. While from the rear seat, Manish could assist me in guiding the bomb after the bomb was dropped. Now, after you drop the bomb, you are supposed to turn with 4 G force. That is about your body weight becomes 4 times your existing weight in that turn, to turn 90 degrees away and to make sure that the laser continues to fire directly at the target right through till it hits. So this is something which is, it happens very quickly. And after we dropped we're at about 8.5 kilometers from the target, we dropped the bomb. The height difference being about 10,000 feet above the target. After we dropped the bomb, we put in a hard turn to the left. Manish was now driving the pod to make sure that the crosshair remained exactly on the target. And we knew the time of flight of the bomb was 30 seconds. Now, to us in the cockpit, those 30 seconds looked as if it took 2 minutes. Time actually slows down. Einstein's relative theory and everything else comes into focus. Time almost stood still for us, and we were thinking probably the weapon had missed. That's when we saw it explode, and we were actually delighted to see the explosion from the cockpit in our scope. All this was being recorded, and it was a great feeling to have achieved what we set out to do.
It requires a lot of presence of mind and a lot of composed nature of a person to do all these things, because even if you do a slight error, so there is no margin of error. That is what I have perceived from whatever you have just told. So is it just about presence of mind, or is it just about being composed, or that feeling of patriotism let you do that? Means how can you be so composed in such a tense environment? That is something, how would you hold your nerves?
That comes with training. It comes with practice. Though we didn't have much practice on this particular board, because it had just come to us in this wartime. We were not really trained on it fully. But given our experience on the aircraft, both Manish and I together, we were fairly well experienced. And the fact that our hands and feet were, with muscle memory and with brain memory, doing exactly the way we were taught. So things happened very naturally. You must remember, we are flying in the high Himalayas. The temperature outside would be minus 20 or even lower. And here we were at 30,000 feet in a single engine aircraft.
Oh my.
And doing all these things, which are really dangerous. But once you are in the cockpit and things are happening, you forget every danger, you forget every relative, you forget everything which is around you. You only concentrate on that task. And then you tend to forget everything else. Your task becomes your priority, and that overshadows everything else. And the focus now becomes razor sharp. As I told you, time stands still, almost still. It counts down at a very slow speed. Everything happens in slow motion. And therefore, you get a lot of time to do what you're supposed to do and do it correctly and well.
Sir, as we all see, Kargil, it is one of the most outstanding joint operations, and where the collaboration of Indian Armed Forces and Indian Air Force can be seen. So how important was the coordination between the Indian Army and Indian Air Force? for the achievement of that mission, for the success of that mission?
Kargil was joint operations in the sense that we were there for the army. The hilltops were occupied by the enemy, and our higher political directions were to eject the enemy and to retake the hill. An additional limitation put that do not cross the line of control. The army, physically, the ground had to be occupied and held by the army. What we could provide was air power and make sure that even before the army went into harm's way, as far as possible, we hit the enemy from the top and made sure that he was punished adequately and neutralized if possible before the army could walk up and catch them and eject them from the hilltop. So, given that, in the Indian Air Force used to have what was then a coordination center located in Srinagar, which was manned by a Air Vice Marshal rank officer. And all tasking from the core headquarters, which is located in Srinagar, used to flow to us in Adhampur through that particular network. So we were doing exactly what the army wanted. Our tasking orders, though it was issued by Western Air Command in Delhi, were based upon the requirements which came from the army. So all our flying, all our tasking were engineered to make this operation successful.
Okay, sir. If we talk about learnings, every mission gives some learning. So, is there one specific lesson or learning that you would like to share with our defense aspirants or with all Indians that you have learned from Kargil?
What we shouldn't forget is the Kargil is not just about a conflict. It's about the fact that we lost 527 lives. It is about the fact that we have to fight to make sure what we have remains with us. We have to make sure that it never happens again. And to that extent, I think there's a very valuable lesson in Kargil. Do not let your guard down, whether it be winter, whether it be summer, whether it be a Lahore bus trip or a declaration. Your guard should always be up, especially when you're dealing with people who are inimical to your interest.
Okay, sir. So, sir, how different is the role of a test pilot from that of a combat pilot? And what did contributing to the HAL Tejas programming mean to you?
A combat pilot flies whatever has been told to him, was given to him. Like, for example, when I was flying the Mirage 2000, I was a combat pilot. I flew the aircraft considering it the best aircraft in the world. I flew it to achieve what I consider perfection. And I didn't look left or right. I was concentrating on doing what that aircraft gave me as good as I possibly could. A test pilot does exactly the opposite. He looks at an aircraft as a challenge. He looks at it from the point of view, how can it be improved? What are its deficiencies? What are its failures? And he flags them and criticizes them to get them improved. This is a vital difference between how a combat pilot views a platform and a test pilot views a platform.
One more thing I remember, sir, when we were talking outside informally, you just gave a beautiful analogy that flying a combat aircraft is like, riding a car or driving a car on a racing track, a sports car on a racing track. And a normal aircraft is like you are driving a cab.
That's right. It's like you taking an Uber and going somewhere, as compared to you flying a combat jet, which is, and it's equivalent to, say, driving a Formula One car. I mean, there's a world of a difference which is unimaginably large.
So you have flown different aircrafts like Tejas and Mirage 2000 and some other as well. So in the last few years, as you have been into the service for a very long time, so what technological challenges were there those days, and how the Air Force technology has improved itself in the course of time? So what all the new technologies has been improved from when then you started flying aircraft and when you left it?
Uh, oh, it's been a world of a change. When I joined the Air Force way back in 1981, most aircrafts were equipped with guns and cannons, and these were employed to shoot down each other in combat. From there, we graduated to air-to-air missiles, which worked on IR principle and had a short range of about 2 to 3 kilometers. That range gradually increased. By 1985-86, when I joined the Mirage 2000 fleet, the range of those missiles had increased initially to about 7 or 8 kilometers, and then subsequently went up to 30 kilometers. That was what happened in the Mirage fleet at that point in time. Today, you have aircraft which can fire 150 kilometers at those distances. So therefore, the lethality of a combat aircraft has gone up from 500 meters to, over my life service in the Air Force, to now over almost 200 kilometers. So that's been a major change, which is clearly visible in the way we now do business. The way we fly today is with those sort of huge range increases which you're thinking about.
Very high tech means.
It's changed dramatically and has become that much more challenging. What happened within what we call eyeball ranges now has gone to beyond visual ranges. So therefore, there is a challenge now.
That means
Your
more
eyes
training
no
is
longer
required.
can detect what is being seen. What you're seeing is what the radar sees, what other sensors see, what other information sources see, the network sees. Everything is now come in, which did not exist in the past. In earlier days, we used to communicate like we do today on the telephone, and we could exchange information on a radio telephony between aircrafts. Today we have very high speed networks which provide my data of my aircraft to the other aircraft. So he sees in real time a sharing of information. And now with the new technologies like AI and everything else, all this data is made into much more simpler and easier to understand packages, which earlier you required to decipher yourself and make this information into knowledge. So all that has happened over the past 30 years.
Okay, sir, let's talk about a little bit about Balakot strike. So, what message did the Balakot strike send to our adversaries and to the world?
I think Balakot showed the sort of the rest of the world and Pakistan, and more importantly our own people, that we have drawn a red line. If you cross that red line, we will hit. We will not hit through what had happened in the past, like a surgical strike across the line of control. We were going to hit across the international border, like we did at Balakot. And we were fully intended to show our resolve and make sure that it didn't happen again. And that's what Balakot achieved. You'll recollect Balakot took place in 2019.
2019.
19, that's right. And from 2019 till 2026, 25, that's about 6 years. What is relative peace? Despite Article 370 being revoked, despite all the other things which we did in Kashmir to stabilize the situation, the militancy took a backseat. And I think that was the achievement of Balakot.
Okay. Sir, how do you see Air Force different from from other armed forces? Like what I have personally seen, that there is a different class, there is different personality of air marshals and flying squadrons. So how different they are from army officers?
Oh, we are not different from army officers. We train together. We join NDA together. We are very close with each other. We live our life together in NDA with them. And we are going through the same birth pangs of any young cadet. And therefore, I know for sure they are the same people. However, the equipment we use is remarkably different. An army officer or an army unit moves at a certain pace, a pace of what I would term as at best 20 to 30 kilometers per hour in peacetime, and in wartime probably a little bit faster. As against which the Indian Air Force, our velocity is much higher in everything which we do. Our aircrafts fly near 1,000 kilometers per hour. Our thought process is obviously that much more faster. We deploy from far away ranges. Things which the army would take maybe 10 days to do, we do it within 1 hour. If, let us assume, a unit was, say, located in, say, in one remote part of India, like, say, Misamari, and that was a infantry unit, and it was required to go to Kargil, it would have taken about a month in the normal course. Maybe in peacetime, it would have taken maybe 10 days. Here, if the similar sort of a scenario, if we had a squadron of Sukhoi 30s based in Chabua or Tezpur, which is just next to Misamari, and it was required to go to war, within 24 hours, we would be sitting in Adhampur or Srinagar or somewhere in the north, ready to fight the next day. That is the sort of speed with which we operate. And that is the sort of capability and the firepower which we hold. So there is a difference in the equipment we use. But in our, as human beings, we are the same people. If you cut a wound, you will get red blood from both of us.
So do we have a change in personalities? Can we, for example, if someone is talking to an armed forces person, can he guess that the person is from Air Force or is from Navy or is from army background specifically? So is there a way or there is some specific trait that through which a person can give a kind of a wild guess that the person is from Air Force or army?
There is a popular joke which says that you don't have to ask an Air Force officer if he's from the Air Force. He will tell you that.
Oh, wow.
He'll proudly announce it without much help. I say the same, that we are all the same. There is not much difference, and all proud to be a part of a larger country like ours and to serve it with.
Sir, one question I have for parents. There are students who complain that they want to be a part of armed forces, but their parents do not allow them to do so. On the other end, we have other scenario as well. The people who are from army background, they push their child to be a part of defense forces. So there are students who want to be the part of defense forces, but they cannot because of their parents. And there are students who do not want to be the part of armed forces, but they have to because of their parents. So how do you see this scenario, and what solution do you refer for the same?
The easiest solution is to change parents. No, that's not practical. I was just joking. But the fact is that given the scenario where you want to be a armed forces officer and your parents are not willing to allow you to do so, I think you have to exercise your communication skill and probably communicate your deep feelings and your requirement that why you should join the armed forces. Communicate it well to your parents, and be rest assured, all parents look out for the best for their children. So if you can convince them and explain to them why you feel that this is the best path for you, I'm sure they will always agree. As regards you not wanting to join the armed forces and your parents forcing you, I would suggest you stick to your principles or your desire and refuse to join, because it's a tough road ahead, especially if your mind is not in it. So that's what I would suggest.
So does it happen sometimes you joined armed forces and after few months of training, it feels I might have got to the wrong place?
You always feel that.
Oh,
Believe you me, from the first day itself, you start feeling, are you in the right place? Because things are very tough. But you have to have the sort of holding power and the resilience to be at it. Look at it as a challenge. Get over the first few days, and then slowly and slowly, you'll get used to the hard physical regime which you have. It's not only physical, it's mental as well. A lot of pressure is there on you to perform. And you slowly and slowly become a champion.
so sir, one message you want to give to our students, those who are preparing for armed forces and they want to be a part of it and they are preparing with their dire efforts. So is there any message you want to convey to those students? Any guidance, any suggestion?
All I will tell you is that having lived my life, I am now 67 years old. I retired at the age of 60, 7 years ago, after 42 years in uniform. That is 42 years since I joined NDA in 1977. And if I have to live my life once again, I think I would have joined and done exactly the same.
Oh my.
What else can I explain to you? How I find it, and how I find it interesting, or how I find it so good for myself that I would like to repeat it once again.
What I have observed in armed forces, that people have got a solid combination of emotional intelligence and being practical. So they are emotional and practical at the same time. When you were telling about your comrade squadron Manoj sir, I could feel emotions, and at the same time you are practical as well. So how this comes that you are practical and very emotional at the same time, you are ready to give your life for the nation, and at the same time you are practical enough to to hit the target at the right spot?
That's a matter of training. The armed forces make sure that irrespective of how emotional you are hardened enough to take on anything. You're hardened enough to stare death in the face and not blink.
Oh.
It comes to you. It doesn't come because of your thought process. It comes because of your training. And that's very important. When you keep doing a thing again and again and again repeatedly, you become an expert. You become the best there is. And if you do it well and practice it as often as you are required to, I'm sure you will do very well. And this applies to not only the armed forces, it applies to everything you do in life. Practice makes perfect.
Sir, in this all course of time, what we have seen that the girls aspirants are increasing, and many girls are still messaging us and talking to us that sir, should we join? Are there any problems for girl, or are there any advantages? How you see this transition that girls are more ready? And recently we have got Colonel Sophia Qureshi. She has got a lot of appreciation from the country for the kind of work she has done. So, how do you see a girl's career there? How fruitful is it going to be for a girl to be a part of armed forces, especially Air Force?
I cannot talk for the armed forces, I'll talk about the Air Force. I think we are a gender neutral service. Our aircrafts, our equipment, our requirements don't require too much of physical strength to operate. We require more of mental strength. And therefore, the Air Force is a fantastic career for a women officer to get into and shine. Uh, I do believe that we are a very fair organization. There is no gender bias or any of the other pitfalls which you hear about in other sectors. The Air Force is an equal opportunity employer. We do not differentiate on any basis, whether it be religion, caste, or any other creed or color or any other force. We have only one criteria, and that is merit. And if you do well, you will shine.
So, sir, please tell us your experience about Tejas aircraft. How do you see it? How do you feel when you fly it?
Tejas, in many ways, is my baby. That's how I treat that aircraft. When I graduated from test pilot school way back in 1992, my first task was to get into the Tejas developmental program. At that time, the Tejas was in its infancy and it was being designed. It was on the drawing board. You will recollect the Tejas first flew in 2001 on the 4th of January. From that day, in 1992, when I joined the program, to its first flight, I was associated in some small manner with the Tejas right through. We're involved in many facets of its design, especially the cockpit, the flight control laws, and therefore, to me, that aircraft truly is my baby, as it is a baby of many other people. A lot of people have put in a lot of hard work to make it happen. It just so happened that it took a lot of time. And therefore, despite the fact that we put in a lot of hard work and a lot of effort went in, and because we were doing it for the first time in our lives, we were cautious. And we were erring on the side of safety. And despite a very successful test program, everything took time. And we are today in 2026, 25 years after first flight, waiting for the Tejas Mark 1A, which is the improved variant of the Tejas Mark 1, to get inducted. I do believe, even though we are late to a large extent, we can make up for it by getting superior weapons for the Tejas. And once we do that, I think the sky is the limit for the Tejas and its new story.
So, sir, as we all know that we have talked about all positive aspects of the defense services, but when we were talking informally, you told me that there were 8 people, 8 martyrs who somewhere lost their lives during certain operations or during the service. So, did you ever come across any such injury, wound, or mishappening that occurred to you and it was very painful, or any such experience you want to share?
Fighter flying is a tough profession in the sense you are at the cutting edge of danger. Invariably, a fighter is a single engine aircraft, and therefore, any single failure could result in utter destruction of the aircraft and chaos. I too had a accident way back in 1993 when I was flying a Kiran along with another engineer, a flight test engineer, and we were about 50 kilometers away from Bangalore when the engine quit on us. And we had but no choice but to eject because the airfield was too far away to glide to. And this was something which is a very, dangerous moment when you eject. You're in a seat which fires a rocket upwards and you leave the aircraft. And I had to wait for my engineer friend to get out first. because I was the captain of the aircraft. And after that, I ejected. And by the time all this happened, we had come down to very low heights. So from the ejection to the touchdown, to me, it appeared less than 3 or 4 seconds. That's the sort of time it took. And in this ejection process, my flying boots flew off. So I didn't have, I had only my socks on when I landed on Mother Earth. So I hurt myself. Not too bad. Sufficient enough to put me in the hospital for 2-3 days. But that was the nearest I came to death.
Indeed dangerous, because if you don't have boot, and you said you were there in the hospital for
2-3 days. There
2-3
was nothing,
days.
no serious injury. But the fact is, you're landing from, say, 10 meters height onto the ground without shoes or boots on. It hurts.
In today's conversation with Air Marshal Sir, we not only discussed the history, but we also understood the values and the importance of armed forces, the sacrifices of the people. किस तरीके से लोगों ने हमारे लिए, देश के लिए शहीद हुए, बलिदान हुए, क्या क्या मुश्किलें आती हैं, कितना मुश्किल होता है, ठीक है, एक एयरफोर्स पायलट के लिए उस ज़िंदगी को गुजारना, वहाँ तक पहुँचना, क्या माइंडसेट रहते हैं, और बहुत सारी चीज़ों पे हमने बात करी. साथ ही साथ डिफेंस वाला और सर पूरी फिजिक्स वाला परिवार इज़ थैंकफुल टू यू फॉर बीइंग अ पार्ट ऑफ दिस कन्वर्सेशन, टू कम हियर फ्रॉम अ लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस. तो सर हम आपके आभारी हैं. और सर साथ ही साथ हम विश्वास करते हैं कि आज की जो बातचीत है उससे बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिला होगा डिफेंस एस्पायरेंट्स को. मुझे खुद सर आपसे बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिला, जो मैं जाकर डिलीवर कर सकता हूँ अपनी क्लासेस में और हेल्प कर सकता हूँ अपने स्टूडेंट्स को उनकी जर्नी में जो वो कंटिन्यू करना चाहते हैं आर्म्ड फोर्सेस के लिए. और सर आखिर में हम श्रद्धांजलि देते हैं उन सारे वीर जवानों को जिन्होंने बलिदान किया देश के लिए, अपनी जान दी और सब कुछ लगा के वो अपना लड़ते रहे. हालात चाहे कितने भी गंभीर थे, कैसा भी हो रहा था, पर सोच के भी रोंगटे खड़े होते हैं कि सब तरफ से बुलेट्स चल रही हैं, कहीं ब्लास्ट हो रहे हैं, आपका साथी आपके साथ है, आप खुद अपने साथ हैं, परिवार की भी फिक्र, बहुत कुछ, और उस समय में आप कुछ भी नहीं सोच रहे हैं, आपकी सारी टेंशन से लगे हैं और सिर्फ आप ये सोच रहे हैं कि सामने दुश्मन है, मुझे इसको हराना है, अपने देश को बचाना है. तो ये बहुत ही एक ऐसी चीज़ है कि जब भी मैं सोचता हूँ तो मुझे भी गूज बम्स आ जाते हैं. तो सर थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर बीइंग अ पार्ट ऑफ this communication, for being a part of this podcast, for giving your precious time to DefenceWallah. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much for hosting me. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.